Hi, today we're talking about game and games. When you were a child, did you play games in the playground? Games at school? Games with your schoolmates? Well, we all grow up, but we still play games, especially if we're in the business world. So there's lots of expressions in English using the word game. For example, when someone says they're talking about the name of the game, they're not talking about is it Monopoly or checkers or chess. The question when they ask, what's the name of the game, they're asking, what's the purpose of all this? Why are we doing this? What is the name of the game? On the other hand, when someone is at the top of their game, the top of their game, it means that they're doing the best they can. They're using their full capacity in whatever they do, whether they're a manager, a supervisor, or even a janitor. They're at the top of their game. They're doing the best that they can do. When we say someone is ahead of the game, we mean that they're really ahead of everyone else. They keep on top of everything. They read the trade journals. They do everything they're supposed to in their job, and in their spare time, they do even more so they can stay ahead of the game. Now, if you want to get ahead of the game, you need to raise your game. Raise your game. In other words, you need to do a little bit more, maybe a lot more than everyone else is doing if you want to get ahead of the game. So learn to raise your game. In business, very often you hear about the cat and mouse game. What's the cat and mouse game? Well, for example, cybersecurity is a very good issue, and it involves the cat and mouse game. So someone comes up with a virus, and then someone comes up with a virus checker. But then there's new viruses. So then the virus checkers have to become better and stronger. And then someone comes up with a different kind of virus. Now we have malware, and that's a different kind of virus on your computer. So then we have now malware checkers. So it's a continuous game between the two sides. A cat and mouse game. Virus, virus checker. Virus, virus checker. That's definitely a cat and mouse game. Now, if you're in business for any length of time, you should be aware that you should be playing the long game. The long game means you're in it for the long term. You're not just interested in quick profit in the next 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, or even the next year. No, you're ready to play the long game, the 5-year game, the 10-year game. You're in it for the long game. Now, if you're a very small business, maybe you own a restaurant or a shop, maybe a grocery store in a small town or small city, and you're the only one in town, we say you're the only game in town. The only game in town. You're the only person capable of doing a particular job. So if you're doing something at work no one else can do, we say, wow, you're the only game in town. You really know how to use that word program. The only game in town. But when you're the only game in town, the other thing we can say is you're a big fish in a small pond. Big fish in a small pond. My dad, when he was living in Canada, was a big fish in a small pond. His pond was the Chinese population in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which was about 200 people. And he used to do all kinds of favors for them. He would go when there's an accident, they need to go to the hospital, they need to get translation. And so he was a big fish in a small pond. And people could rely on him to get a favor done. But he was a big fish in a small pond. Next, we have the zero-sum game. Now, the zero-sum game is a game where you cannot win. So no matter how hard you work, no matter what effort you put into it, it's still, in the end, a zero-sum game. In other words, if you're in business, this is something you keep doing and doing and doing, you won't make anything. You're just turning the money around and around and around. You're making people do a lot of work, but in the end, you don't get anything. So it's called a zero-sum game. If your manager or boss asks you to do something, for example, he says at the meeting, hey, Who would like to make a presentation next week about the new proposal that we have to make to the XYZ company? You put your hand up and you say, I'm game. Means you're in. I'm game. Have game, on the other hand, is very similar to be game. Means you're excited about something. You have game. You want to do something about something. You have game. In business, every once in a while we have something that we read about in the newspaper that is a game changer. So for many years we had mobile phones. But when the iPhone came along, it was a game changer. It changed the way people looked at mobile phones. So we call that a game changer. And another way we say it is, after the introduction of the iPhone, it was a whole new ball game. A whole new ball game. So when we say ball game, usually in America, when they say ball game, they mean a baseball game. So it's a whole new idea, a brand new idea. It changed how we play the game. A whole new ball game. It's as if they changed the rules of the game. It's a game changer. When you're not sure of someone's intentions at a meeting or what they're doing, particularly you have a plan and they're doing something that doesn't seem to be in line with that plan, you might be suspicious and say to someone else, hey, what's his game? What's he doing? What is he up to? If someone goes yakety, 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 yak about something and you don't really understand them or they're just kind of talking around in circles, we say, hey, come on, stop playing games. Stop playing games. In other words, get to the point. Don't go talking around and around and around. Stop playing games. On the other hand, when someone gets caught doing something they're not supposed to be doing, people in the office will say, his game is up. Jack's game is up. In business, in school, wherever, there are always people who are gaming the system. I teach at a university, and many of my, well, let's say some of my students, they like to game the system. They come to class the minimum, they do the minimum number of projects, they do the absolute bare minimum just to pass. And they find ways to bend the rules. We say they are gaming the system. That's gaming the system. So that's all we have for you today about games. If you want to get ahead of the game, get game. And then your industry will look up to you and you will be the one that brought about the game changer. Learn to be a game changer yourself and you will be ahead of the game.